Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, and joining us right now in the studio to take a closer look at the performance of the presidency in the last 1 year is a lecturer at Bayes University, Abuja, Dr. Samson Nzeribe. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening.
Well, very quickly right now, is Nigeria's practice of the presidential system of government yielding the best results?
The presidential system in Nigeria is not different from the presidential system in other parts of the world. So the problem we have is not with the system. The problem with this country is that each time what we have is a ruler and not a leader. What this country needs is a leader that will lead by example. All the government departments, government institutions will look up to that leader. Let me take you for it.
When you say a ruler, what are you talking about?
When I say a ruler, there's a difference between a ruler and a leader. A leader leads by example, while a ruler is like a monarch. In Nigeria today, Nigerians were so happy when Buhari came on board because of his perceived integrity. Even the international community seemed to agree that there's integrity. And that's what this country are looking up to him to say, give us leadership, not rulership. But he's yet to start that. Take, for instance, a country, I will just give you a small example. A country like Britain, David Cameron, not David as in person, but the office of the British Prime Minister, has no aircraft, no single aircraft attached to it. In Nigeria, do you know how many aircrafts are attached to the presidential fleet? In the international community, we cannot rub shoulders with Britain. They are far ahead of us. Now, they don't have an aircraft for the Prime Minister. When he's to travel, they lease British Airways. Now, we have so many, more than 5. It costs money to maintain an aircraft. This is just one of the examples that we should do away with.
Is that what makes him a ruler?
A ruler, yes. A leader leads by example. Buhari came, first and foremost, he slashed his own salary. That's good, but he has not gone far. He has to set good examples. There has to be rule of law in this country. The era of courts giving judgment and is being ignored does not augur well for Nigeria before the international community on our human rights path. You should set good examples.
So do you think the president is on the right path towards a successful presidency?
That's an academic question. Because in the world all over in history, we've seen presidents come to office under difficulties, struggle initially, but at the end, come out with their heads high. About a year ago, I was reading, there's a journal, International Affairs Today. They were analyzing that a year ago, Obama's rating was so low that there was this fear that whoever the Democrats will bring out will suffer that negative effect. But today, as Obama is nearing his end, his ratings are soaring. So, Buhari, as of today, Nigerians are growing quite all right, raising in the electricity tariff, raising of the pump price of the petroleum, prices of goods have gone up, but he can still turn things around.
Okay, so what really is the way forward to help reposition Nigeria as it stands?
The way forward to help reposition Nigeria as it regards to Buhari now because he is the president for the next, well, this is 1 year, for the next 3 years. He has to. Thank God he's a military man. If a military man is in the war front, a general in the war front, and he's not going well, he will retreat, re-strategize, and come out. I advise the president to go in, re-strategize, and come out. We've not seen his economic policy. We don't know where we are drifting so far.
Interesting. So even little successes don't count.
Have you seen it in the economy? There's no success in the economic policy of this country. As I'm sitting here, I've not seen any, if there was an economic policy actually. But this is a man who has run for this office. This is the 4th time. So many people had expected that before the election, as they're announcing the result of the election, he will unleash his economic policy on this country. But we've not seen that. And I hope that he has to go in, re-strategize, and come out.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Samson Nzeribe, for your thoughts on the News 10.
Thank you.
But that's it on the nations. From the nation's capital, it's back to you, Gimba.
Brilliant. Gloria Mozuke, thank you so much indeed. The central bank is set to introduce a flexible exchange rate policy that will allow the bank retain a small portion of foreign exchange for critical transactions. Addressing journalists at the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja, the central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, says that the Apex Bank remains committed towards the attainment of price stability in the country. The committee was, however, left interest rate unchanged at 12%.
The committee, in its assessment of the relevant risk profiles, came to the conclusion that although the balance of risks remain tilted against growth, previous decisions need time to crystallize. Consequently, in a period of stagflation, the policy options are very limited. To avoid complicating the conditions, the committee decided on the least risky option to hold. The foreign exchange market framework now ready, the MPC voted unanimously to adopt a flexible exchange rate policy to restore the automatic adjustment properties of the exchange rate. Consequently, all 9 members voted to hold and introduce flexibility in managing the foreign exchange rate. The bank would, however, retain a small window for funding critical transactions. Details of operations of the market will be released by the central bank at the appropriate time. In summary, MPC voted to retain MPR at 10%, to retain CRR at 22.5%, to retain liquidity ratio at 30%, and also to retain the asymmetric corridor at plus 200 basis points and minus 500 basis points around the NPR.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. All here to throw light on the announcement by the CBN governor on the outcome of the MPC meeting is an economist and policy analyst, Mr. Bismarck Rawani. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. What reaction did you get? What was your immediate reaction to this announcement by the CBN?
Light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, adopting a flexible exchange rate policy and getting rid of the rigidity of a fixed exchange rate regime, which has actually been responsible for many of our economic ailments today. So that's the first step. It's a brave step in the right direction. And so why are we doing it now? We could have done it a year ago, but they say better late than never. Today we are faced with oil revenues that have dwindled. We are faced with GDP negative for the first time in 16 years. We are faced with inflation at 13.7%, highest level in about 4 or 5 years. Nigeria is one of the top 8 countries in terms of inflation in Africa. We are also faced with wage pressure. And so we've taken steps. First step was to actually more or less deregulate, and I don't want to use that word, use that carefully, the petroleum market. Now we've adopted a flexible exchange rate policy. However, what you have done effectively is to have a dual exchange rate, because there's this supposed small window for critical transactions. And what does critical transactions mean? History tells us that critical transactions, as far as government is concerned, could include sponsoring Christian pilgrims, Hajj pilgrims, and under the guise of whatever it is. But a dual exchange rate is open to abuse. It leads, you are actually selling the dollars at a particular rate for special considerations at the discretion of whoever.
But which should be the bigger picture, looking at this new MPC rate that has been released by the Central Bank of Nigeria? Which is the bigger picture concerning the economy now? Should we have had the
interest rate?
The interest rate.
No. You see, when you're confronted with the choice between growth and inflation, you usually go for growth, especially when you are facing negative growth. We've had negative growth in Q1. It is almost certain that we will have negative growth in Q2. 2 back-to-back quarters of negative growth is called recession. Recession is an economist's nightmare. So you got to get out of it. How do you get out of it? Accommodative monetary policy, 1. 2, expansionary fiscal policy. And that's what the budget of 2016 is, expansionary. It's coming 6 months late, but they say better late than never. Flexible exchange rate policy, coming 1 year late, better late than never. Removal of subsidies in petroleum products is coming 1 year late or 18 months late, better late than never. So again, all of a sudden we are now taking all of these things. Are we doing it because we all of a sudden we found out? No, we are compelled to do it because the market are disciplined. 1, political office holders, 2, policymakers, 3, regulators, and the operators, and the markets themselves. So we are now going to a regime of efficient markets, and you will see the effect. What will the impact be? The impact is simple. Today, the rates remain the same because nobody's clear. The guidelines are going to be reissued in a couple of days. So the parallel market closed at 347, which is what it was yesterday, and will not move. The official market is at 199, but nobody gets money at that rate. Now, or people who get it are few. Now, what do I think is going to happen? In a couple of days when the guidelines are issued, the markets will exaggerate themselves out of panic in the wrong direction before correcting themselves. So you could see a range of 250, maybe to 280
to the dollar.
To the dollar. And then in the parallel market, probably run away a little bit to about 390, then converge back to about 340. What happens in efficient markets are rates unify and converge. But what you must do is not to allow market asymmetry by having a kind of dual exchange rate, which will be abused.
What do you suppose will happen if independent marketers, as you mentioned, will have to go source for Forex themselves, and then it's coming in between 320, 350?
No, it won't. They're not going to get that. First and foremost, there's a limit to how much naira is available. So there will not be that, insatiable demand for dollars, because you've got to use the dollars to bring in things for people to buy. So what you're going to see is, first of all, market divergence. But the parallel market today is priced at the equilibrium plus fear, plus uncertainty, plus unavailability. Now that you have a flexible exchange rate policy, the fear, uncertainty, and unavailability will probably disappear. What you're going to have is an increase in the quantity supplied. And when the market structure has become efficient, there will be a shift, outward shift in this supply curve, where you will find aggregate supply of dollars will improve. That takes time. But right now, a lot of people that wanted to bring money into the country have been holding back because they would not be able to, they'll be bringing it at a rate which is not beneficial to them. So you have to go back and say, what is an efficient price? Remember that everybody said when the price of petrol went up, we will still have queues and all that. You see, in a matter of days, the queues have disappeared all over the country. Why? Because the price is nearer equilibrium. The same thing will happen in the foreign exchange market. When the price is right, you'll find that all of these things will disappear. And because it's flexible, when the conditions improve, when the price of oil goes up, when our production goes up, you'll begin to see that the naira begins to appreciate. And that is what the long-term thing. Maybe in the first few weeks we'll have some difficulty, but after that you see the naira begins to appreciate because the uncertainty has been removed from the equation, and that is what makes currencies stable. There's nothing unusual about it. If you look at across Africa, across the world, many countries going through the kind of fundamental problems we go through have to adjust their currencies to be able to price it accordingly. Rationing is open to abuse, and rationing does not work.
An economist and policy analyst, Mr. Bismarck Rouhani, always a pleasure having you talk to us on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Many thanks indeed. We're quickly shifting gears now, and Waldo is standing by to take us through more business stories.